Next up in my video series of drawing animals as letters of the alphabet, we're up to the letter U, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to draw this urchin for the letter U using the iPad in Procreate. Just like all my videos too, it's in real time, no time lapse, no edits. You can follow along every single step of the way, so let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, I'm using a 4000 by 4000 pixel 300 DPI canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brushes today, I'm going to be using my creator set for Procreate. This is available for purchase on Gumroad. Links down in the description below. If you don't want to use this, just feel free to find your favorite brush in Procreate and follow along with that. But if you do, we'll be using the Brainstorm sketch brush to begin sketching with, and then move over to the smooth inker for adding the inks and outlines. And then finally, once again, I've got the color palette for this pre-made. So you can download the exact same colors that I'm using in today's video. If you go to my website, bjdell.com, underneath page 12, the YouTube reference materials, it's all linked down in the description below. You can find the link for that exact color palette and follow along with the same colors. All right, let's get started. To begin with, I want to get my letter in there. So I'm going to go up to my actions menu. I'm going to go over to add. I'm going to add text, hit U. Then we'll double tap this just to change the font. We used Arial in this whole series, so it's not going to change it a whole lot, but we'll stick with that. Hitting done here, and then up to the transform arrow with uniform and snapping turned on. We'll just drag this out and fill in our canvas with that, and then making sure we get the orange lines both vertically and horizontally. Lets us know it's centered. Then we'll tap layers to lock it in. Now I'm going to go ahead and hold down on the text layer, drag it under layer 1. I'm going to hit N for blend mode and drop the opacity of this down to about 10%. Want to be able to see it, just don't want it to be too dark. All right. And then we're ready to sketch on layer 1. So how I see this urchin, of course, is going to be really difficult to get that shape. So we're going to cheat here a little bit, and instead of like stacking up a bunch of urchins around here, I'm just going to do one down here in the center, and then we'll have seaweed coming up to kind of form the rest of the U on the sides here. I think that's kind of the best approach. So now that we've got that decided, we can go ahead and begin. I'm going to turn on symmetry. So I'm going to come up here to my actions menu. I'm going to go over to canvas, and I'm going to turn on drawing guide. When we do that, you'll see we get a 2D grid, which is not what we want. We want symmetry. So we want to edit drawing guide, and then down here is our symmetry option. Once we turn that on, we've got that vertical line now. So anything that we draw on the left side is going to show up on the right, and vice versa. Okay. Once again, using that Brainstorm sketch brush to begin with. Usually like to sketch around the 19%. So I'm just going to draw an oval here in the center, kind of for where our urchin is going to go. And then I'm just going to start to kind of pull up some lines around here for that seaweed coming around. Kind of have it coming into the body there, and then back up here. We'll have those center lines to kind of break it up a little bit. We'll just kind of have it flowing in different directions here. All right, I think it looks pretty good. So from here, then we can move on down to the actual urchin itself. And I think I want to get the eyes in here first. So let's give him kind of a mean look this time. Usually I go with the really cartoony, happy looks, but let's go with a mean look. We'll get some ovals in there for the eyes, kind of pull in some bags down here and around underneath, along with some tapered lines there to give a little bit more character. Get our pupils in here, and then our iris coming around. And then from here, I'm going to come up to the layers menu. I'm going to make another new layer here, so I don't have drawing assist turned on, because I want to do the mouth and I don't want that to be symmetrical. So we'll kind of do a kind of like a scowl here. Give him the chin right there. And I think that's a pretty strong character design for our urchin. Now we've got to add in the spikes coming around. So we're going to go back to our drawing assist layer. I'm just going to start to pull in spikes around our head here, with some coming in the background. And I'm just doing this fairly quick because we are gonna, of course, have to come back in and ink all this stuff. So doing this part fairly fast saves us from getting too attached to these lines and kind of frees up our time to fine-tune everything once we get to the actual inking stage. So just pulling those down and around, and then here in the center. And then once again, I want to come back to that non-symmetrical layer to get these center ones in here, because I didn't want those to be exact. All right, and pulling back, you can kind of see what we're left with the sketch. Super quick, super fast, super easy. If you need to slow this down, feel free to use that time feature in YouTube to where you can change the playback speed if you want to slow that down to follow along. I know it went pretty quick there, but honestly, it's a fairly simple design, and we're going to spend the majority of the time working it out in the ink stage anyways. So let's go ahead and get to that now. All right, so to begin the inks, we're going to come up here to our layers menu. I'm going to go ahead and pinch these together so they're all on one now, and we'll turn off the background text here. I'm also going to grab this. I'm going to move it up just a tad bit because those bottom spikes are closing in on that bottom pretty quick. All right, so we'll make a new layer. I'm going to tap this, and I'm going to set this to drawing assist as well. And then with our brush, we'll change this over to the smooth inker. I also want to tap on this to open the brush studio, and under stabilization, I want to make sure that the streamline on this is turned up all the way, and then we'll hit done. Okay, and I think first thing here, let's drop the opacity of the sketch layer down to about 30%. And then we can start drawing on layer one. And I think I'm going to start in with the spikes here. So I'm just going to start to bring those around. Just like so. And if you need to kind of touch up some of those connecting points, you can feel free to do that. Once again, we'll need to, for the center one, we'll make a new layer that's not drawing assisted. Bring in our lines for that. And with those done, then we can go back in to, oops, let's bring this up a little bit because those were kind of overlapping in a kind of funky way there. All right. With those done, then we can come back up here to our drawing assisted layer and just kind of continue on with these. And you'll see this one has got an overlap there since I didn't draw that one assisted. So we'll have to fix that here in a second. It might even do it. Yeah, it's going to do it there too. So honestly, for those, instead of fixing it, let's just go back to the non-drawing assisted layer. And for these ones closer to the center, we can just go ahead and do these manually and not have to worry about the overlaps. Okay, back to the drawing assisted layer here. Just continuing on with our spikes. That one's going to have that overlap too, so we might have to do that one manually. Let's pull that back here. And you see it'll erase there. So if we go back to our non-drawing assisted layer now, we can just extend that line down. It's always the problem that you run into with using the drawing assist. If you do any lines that aren't, it might not match up with those new lines. Okay, back to drawing assist now. Just kind of continue these down and around. Pulling in the lines there. Kind of twisting our canvas as we go is beneficial. Just to have a little bit more comfortable drawing angle. Your arm is going to be more accustomed to a certain angle than another. So if you feel like you're kind of fighting against yourself as you're drawing the lines, it probably means there's a more comfortable angle that you can draw at. and just try twisting your canvas around to be able to identify where that angle is at. So we'll just continue to come around doing these and connecting those lines where everything matches up, twisting as we go. This, I would really urge you to be zoomed in pretty far like this. It's going to make this a whole lot easier for you. If you can see exactly where these lines meet up and where they should end at. Those coming in there. This one in the center, I will just do that one there. Like that, since I know where it's at. And then pulling back around, you can kind of see where we're left with here. I'm not super happy with some of these lines where these connect. I think these need to be a little bit more rounded. I was trying to do all those in one fell swoop, so I think pulling those back out and then doing it again just benefit the overall outcome there. If you wanted to too, we can also, coming up here to the smooth inker, I'm going to turn off the stabilization now, because where these meet up here onto the body part, I'm going to start pulling in some tapers around there. Once again, this one's a centered one, so you've got to be very careful with this one, with how that meets up in the center. You might have to pull it up thicker and then come back in and do some erasing to get that to look right. We'll just continue this around here and pulling those out. Just extending those lines with a little bit of a taper and then coming in with a curved line underneath. And with this, you don't even have to do it to all of them if you don't want to. You can just kind of be haphazard about it too, or just do smaller ones like that. Totally up to you how you want to do it. All right, pulling back then, you can kind of see what we're left with there. I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and move on to the eyes now. So we'll come in, zoom in a little bit here. We'll pull in the tapered lines down and around for the eyes. Same thing here, tapered lines for those bags underneath. A couple other lines coming in under that section. Oval here for the pupil. Another oval for the iris. Just making sure that the flow of that and the curve is the same. All right, now for the mouth here, let's go back up. Let's go ahead and pinch these together now so they're all on one. And let's make another new layer here that's non-drawing assisted. First thing I want to do is I want to hold down white in the background, and I'm going to add in some highlights into the eyes here. We didn't do this drawing assisted because we don't want those symmetrical. We want the light source coming in from this way, so you're going to have the bigger highlight on the left-hand side. If we did this symmetrically, the bigger one would be on the left here and would be on the right over here. Go back to black here, get the mouth in here. Pulling up a tapered line there and maybe a smaller tapered line there at the end. A little squiggly there for the chin. And another line for the chin underneath. I think that looks good. Maybe even pull in some just like quick little spikies that aren't the full-on spikes like that around the face there too. So it's got a little bit more detail there. You could maybe even overlap some of them if you wanted to into the actual bigger spikes. Once again, totally up to you what you want to do with this process here. Okay, looks good. Let's see, next up, let's go ahead and work on the background here. We're going to pinch these together. So we'll work on the seaweed coming up. So another new layer, tap, drawing assist, smooth inker, and we want that streamline turned back up now. And then we're just going to come in here. And the reason why we did this is because now we can overlap these lines into these lines that we've already done. And then using the eraser, we can erase that overlap. I always like to start a line outside of where it begins, just because that gives me a little bit more control over the shape and the direction of the line. It gives me more control over how much pressure I'm applying, and I kind of have it locked in. By the time that line starts, I know exactly where I need to be. Pulling those center lines down there and back to the eraser to erase the overlaps. Do the same thing here, pulling those in, erasing the overlaps. And now I'm going to go ahead and pinch those together so they're all in one. Make another new layer, drawing assist again, so that way I can overlap these as well. We'll pull those down, erase the overlaps there. Erase the overlaps here. This one, I'll pull that center one in from the top there. Oops. Just like that. I'm going to pinch again, so they're on one. Once again, new layer, drawing assist, so I can overlap these. Okay. Back to my eraser then to clean up that line and then erase the overlaps down here. Erase that one last overlap there. Then pulling back, we should be good. So I'm going to come in here then. I'm going to pinch those together so they're all on one. And since we've got those lines coming down in the center of those, I think I'm going to come in just real quick and add just a few random ones in here. And actually, I don't want these to be drawing assisted, so I'm going to make a new layer again, not turning on drawing assist this time. I'm just going to throw in some tapered center lines just around some of these. Once again, not doing every single one and not doing them symmetrically, so they're just kind of randomized here. And over here, I'll try not to do the exact same ones that I did on that other side. And like here, we want to make sure that we zoom in so we can get that line going in that same flow of the direction as the outline. All right, I think that looks good. So zooming back out here, I'm going to turn off my sketch layer. I'm going to pinch these back together. So they are all on one now, and you can see what we're left with. From this stage, we're ready to move in and add the color flats. So to add the color flats, first thing we're going to do with our layers menu open is I'm going to tap this one, and I'm going to set this as reference. So when we drag and drop our colors into our new layer that we're going to make right now underneath layer 3, it'll only show up in the areas outlined here. Saves a lot of time in regards to that compared to hand coloring for sure. So with that done then, we're going to do this a tad bit different too this time because we're going to have multiple color flats layers. So I'm going to use green to begin with. We'll drag and drop the green and then hit continue filling here. And then we'll just tap these like so. And if we would have turned on our drawing assist with this, we wouldn't have had to come in and hit all of these separately. It would have saved half the time there. So we're going to do that with the next one here. So we've got the green done. I'm going to make another new color flats layer here. We've got this dark purple. That's what we're going to use for the spikes. So we're going to tap this layer. And once again, we're going to turn on drawing assist here. So when we drag and drop the color, it fills in that opposite side. We'll hit continue filling here. And we'll start to come around and fill in all of the spikes. Now for these bottom ones, you might have to zoom in closer because we want to make sure that we don't hit a line edge. If we hit a line edge, it's going to fill in the outlines. And we don't want that. Next up, we've got the light purple. So once again, we're going to come in here. We're going to make a new layer for this one. We're going to drag and drop our light purple in there. And then for this one, we can go ahead and do the eyes on the same layer. I'm going to turn off the background color so we can see, okay, the eyes look like they were filled in, but that was just because our background was white. So we're going to select white here, drag and drop those in, and then the blue for the irises. Once again, making sure that we don't hit the lines like that, because it's going to fill in an outline. So if we do it a few times, you might have to zoom in tighter so you can actually make sure you're hitting that right spot. All right, so there we go. Our color flats are done. Let me go ahead and turn back on the background color here. So once again, color flats go pretty quick. Those are kind of the easiest areas to do. Now we'll move on with those done to our shadows and then to our highlights. So to begin our shadows, we'll start out with the green first. We're going to come and select the green layer. I'm going to make a new layer on top of the green, and then I'm going to set this to clipping mask. So what this does is it allows us to color in on layer 7, and it's only going to show up on the areas that are colored in on layer 4. We need a different color though, so back up to our color palette. We've got this kind of darkish blue color here. Once again, still using that smooth inker with the stabilization streamline turned up all the way. And we've got the light source coming in from this top left-hand corner based on our highlights and our eyes. So highlights are going to hit the left and top areas. Shadows are going to be on the right and on the bottom. So with that done then, we can go ahead and start inking. And you'll see here why I did this as a separate layer. Because if our color flats were all on one, we would be overlapping all of that purple right now. And it would just be a nightmare to come in there and try to erase all of those overlaps. So doing it this way allows us to quickly come in here and fill in only on the green color. We don't have to worry about hitting any of the other colors. So it's almost, if you think about it, kind of like a double clipping mask almost. We don't have to worry about going outside of our colors here because we are just coloring in on only the green since it's a separate layer. Really quick tip to save a ton of time if you've got overlaps like this and want to quickly fill in areas and not have to worry about hitting other colors. All right, with that filled in then, I am going to turn off reference on layer 3 because I want to be able to, once I have areas filled like this and connected, I want to drag and drop my color in there. If you have reference turned on still, you're not going to be able to do that. So turning off reference will allow you to drag and drop once you have areas like that filled in. All right, pulling back out to see where we're at here. Get a couple more here along the sides. On the bottom here. We'll do just a little bit here. Not too much. Okay. Pulling back out then, you can see where we're at here. I'm going to go ahead and come up to my layers menu. I'm going to hit N for blend mode and drop the opacity on this to get this set in. I think probably about 35% looks pretty good. 34, 35, wherever you can get it to land on. There we go. All right, I'm going to continue on here. We will fill in probably a pretty big area here with this one. And then since that's all filled in, then I'm going to use the eraser and just pull out a little bit here along the edge, just so you can still see that that does have a shadow. If it's totally filled in, you almost lose the shadow fact just because it's one solid color. So pulling that back out with the eraser there kind of does a good job of communicating to the viewer that there is a shadow there. You'll see here with the flow of that line, I'm just kind of following around how the curve of the outline goes. That I had an open gap here in one of the lines, so I've got to fill in a little bit more before I drag and drop like I did. Now I should be good to drag and drop that in. If you've got an area like that that's being filled in, it just usually means that you've got a open gap in one of your lines. Either that or your color drop threshold might be too low, which I've talked about before as well. So just following along a pretty big area like that and dragging and dropping the color in. And connecting the lines, dragging and dropping the color in. I think this one I'll pull down on that backside into here on that line. You see how I'm just using those lines that I've already done to kind of dictate how the line flows, where the line goes. And then just using the eraser once again to pull out a little bit. And pulling back, you can see what we've got. So there we go. The green is done. Next up, we've got, let's go ahead and do the face layer next. So just like we did with the other one, we're going to make a new layer here. We're going to tap this one and set this to clipping mask. So once again, now on the face, if we color in here, you see it only colors in the area that's this lighter purple. We don't have to worry about hitting the dark purple. We don't have to worry about hitting, well, I guess for here, we wouldn't really have to worry about hitting the green anyways, but it still comes in pretty handy. Just going to get a pretty big area filled in and then use my eraser to kind of fine tune it. So again, I've still got a open gap somewhere in the colors here. Pull those back around. I think it should be connected now. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to come up here to my layers menu, hit N for blend mode, drop down the opacity of this so I get a good kind of feel of where it needs to be at. And I think there, about 43%, looks pretty good. And then I can start coming in here again with my eraser and pulling back. Some of that shadow. Hit one over here, a little tapered line there. And then back to my eraser or my brush here. We'll start to kind of pull in some more. I'm going to zoom in some more here because once again, I've got really tight lines down here that I need to make sure that those tapers match up with the end taper there of the mouth. So getting in really tight to make sure that those line up is key. I'm going to twist and turn this once again because I'm going to have a little bit more of a comfortable drawing position there that way. Okay, pull in under this eye. Well, actually, let's pull in the inside section here, the white of the eye. Pull in some here underneath that brow there, beneath the eye here, then also underneath this one there. Pull some up on this side as well. And pull them back to see where we're at. I think that looks pretty good for the purple here. We'll probably pull in just a little bit more in some of these areas around here. Where some of those are kind of overlapped there in the background. Those are kind of going to be shaded in a little bit. All right, I think that looks good. So the dark purple or light purple is done. Now we can move on to the dark purple of the spikes. Same technique here. We're going to tap on that. We're going to make a new layer, tap on the new layer, and then set it to clipping mask. Once again here, we are not using drawing assist. Just get some decent areas filled in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and test out the opacity. So back up to the layers menu, N for blend mode, and dropping this down to, let's go, hey, about maybe a little bit darker, 45%, 49. Making it even 50. I think that looks good. We can just kind of continue on hitting the shadows here, kind of pulling back when we need to, building up again. Pull these in maybe a little bit more here. In the further back areas, go super filled in. And then we can pull back a little bit on that side where the light source is coming in with the eraser. You can pull in some tapered lines like that too, to match up some of those other ones that we've got. Continuing on here then, I'm going to go pretty heavy back in these. And actually for this, I'm going to turn back on reference on our lines layer. So that way we can just drag and drop these in fairly quick. Continue filling. These I can fill in fairly fast, and then I can just come back in with the eraser and pull out a little bit here. Kind of twisting my canvas once again. Have a little bit more control of those lines. We'll just pull along the edges here with some tapers. All right. And just continuing the process along. This is definitely one of those times where I don't think that, real time is really something that's needed, but I'm not going to use time lapse on this, even though it could probably benefit from it. So if you're still watching right now, thanks for bearing in with me on this one. Some things like this are a little bit tedious sometimes, but hey, it's necessary in the design process. So, all right, and there we go. So we've got the shadows done for all the different colors. From here, then we can go ahead and move on to adding the highlights. So let's go ahead and do that next. So for the highlights, I'm going to come up here, same technique. We'll start with the green. And if I select that green layer and make a new layer, you're going to see it automatically sets its clipping mask, which is pretty awesome. So if I come up here to my color palette, select white, then I can start coming in here and adding in our highlights. Just kind of bring in a tapered into that line. Same thing here, just mainly hitting these edges on the top. When I get up here further, I'll start to pull in a little bit more, maybe even some back down through the bottom part like that. Here I'm going to go quite a bit bigger, following that taper down and around and back up. I'm going to turn off my reference again so I can drag and drop the color here. And it's obviously not connected, so I need to do a better job there connecting. There we go. Still on that white layer just to make sure. Sometimes if I'm playing around with layers and I switch back and forth, I like to go back in and double check just to make sure I did decide to go back, because there's nothing more infuriating than doing a ton of work and then realizing after all that work's done that you were on the wrong layer. It sucks. So going back and checking like that can save a lot of headaches later. Go fairly limited over here. All right, I think that looks good. So let's go ahead. Once again, back to the layers menu, and for blend mode, we'll drop down the opacity of this one down to about 40%. I think looks good. We'll do the spikes next. So new layer, once again, it automatically sets it as clipping mask because we have that other layer on top of it. So we'll pull down some lines here. And once again, back to the layers menu to drop the opacity under the blend mode. And for blend mode, dropping this down. We'll just kind of continue here to go around. I'm not going to go super crazy with this one. Kind of get the idea here. We can come in with some ovals as well if you want to add in some extra highlights there. And probably the tops of some of these. Kind of keeping these more towards the front ones. Got a little gap there that I need to get filled in on the shadows layer. Again, that's one of the benefits of zooming in a ton is you won't have misses like that. All right, pulling back out, you can kind of see what we're left with there. I'm not super big on that highlight there. I think I'm going to break that down a little bit. I don't mind a highlight, but I think that one was just a little bit too big. So we'll just do some smaller ones like that. And then finally, we'll do the same thing here on the inside of the face. So layer 6, new layer, automatically sets it as clipping mask. Let's get some highlights here along the top of that brow. I'm going to twist the canvas again just so my arm has more of a natural flow to that movement. Same thing here along the mouth. A little bit here on the chin. All right, back up to the layers menu again to drop the blend mode down. And I think probably about 25% looks pretty good there. We can even add in some more of those highlights too if you want. And pull them back out, you can see what we're left with. So I'm just going to make a new layer here, zoom in, sign this guy, and we will be done with today's video. So there we go, a sea urchin for the letter U. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like today's video too, do me a favor, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you can get notified when I post new videos. Also, if you follow along with any of the videos, post your designs online. I definitely want to see them. So if you're on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever, all the other socials, tag me at BJ Dell so I can check them out. Threads is another one as well. I love seeing what you guys come up with. So it's really cool to see, and I like digging through there and checking them out. So thanks so much as always. As for me, I can also be found online, bjdell.com. And that is it for today's video. Tune in next time. And until then, keep creating.